Hey guys, this is AI Gaming 1776 and I am here to make Just Cause 3 play at 60 frames per second with Vsync enabled while using an R9 380. So step 1, overclock your R9 380. I'm going to use MSI Afterburner to do it with mine. You use whatever it is you use for your overclocking. Alright, so core clock. I've got mine up to 1058. When I bought the card and took it out of the box, it was at 980 and I've taken it to 1058. Now I also upped the power limit. I don't know if that helps or not, but I did it by 4%. Now you also want to run the game as an administrator. So go over to your C drive, get in there, go to program files, x86, and then go to Steam, and then go to Steam apps, go to common, go to Just Cause 3, which if I knew the alphabet, I would know is right there. Now there's an icon next to the actual game. Right click on that, run as administrator. Those are the first two steps. So once I see that the game's loading, I'll try to explain a little bit more of what we're trying to do with this video. Looks like the game's loading. We'll see if it crashes or keeps going. Looks like it's going to go. All right, so here's the deal. Just Cause 3 plays at above 60 frames per second with an R9 380 if you don't use Vsync. When you use Vsync, it goes down to 30 frames per second and even less. Now the crazy thing is if you turn the settings all the way down at 1080p and don't use Vsync, the game can actually play over 100 frames per second. As soon as you hit Vsync, you go down to 30 FPS. Now I posted a video on this and I showed that at great length. It's a half-hour video. I kept turning Vsync off and on and showing different settings. That's not going to be the point of this video. The point of this video is to show how I finally got the card to use Vsync and then keep it at 60 frames per second. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. It doesn't necessarily keep 60 frames per second, but it's close enough to make me happy. How about that? And you'll see I have some settings. The settings are not turned up very high, but they're not at the lowest. So that's part of why it's not keeping the 60 frames per second, but it's enough to make me happy. 30 was not making me happy. And as a matter of fact, it would go below 30. It would go 27, 28. It did not feel good. It was not very responsive. I was not happy. Now, some of you may say, well, why use Vsync? Well, the reason I use Vsync is I don't like screen tearing. And then some of you may say, well, why don't you limit the frame rate? I tried that. It still looked really bad. I don't care what anyone says. Limiting the frame rate is a gimmick. Variable frame rate is a gimmick. I use NVIDIA graphics cards also. NVIDIA has an option that lets you do variable refresh. It's a gimmick. It does not necessarily look that great. So as you can see, we are right here. The image quality is not bad considering the frame rate that we've chosen. That's actually pretty good image quality. But it's not a desirable frame rate. The game doesn't feel, I would say it doesn't feel very good. Let me go on the map. I'm going to have to mark where we're going really quickly because I've screwed around so much that the game now has forgotten where I want to be. All right, I want to be here. So let's put a waypoint. All right, got our waypoint. You see we're at 28 frames per second. So here is step 3 for keeping the 60 frames per second. As a matter of fact, let me show you the settings I've got. And matter of fact, I'll take Vsync off and I'll show you that. So we're at full screen, 1080p, FXAA, texture quality high, water detail medium, water tessellation off, level of detail is high, shadow quality is medium, everything else is off. All right. And oh yeah, let's turn off the Vsync so I can show you that even with it not having to be at the lowest settings, it does get a pretty good frame rate. All right, look, we're over 100 frames per second. Like right there, it's 100 frames per second. You can see in the upper right-hand corner. But let's actually start flying around and stuff, and then you'll see it fluctuate. So now we're down into the 80s, went into the 70s a little bit. See, it doesn't feel good either. So even when I have such a high frame rate as I do right now, it doesn't feel good. It feels a little sluggish. I don't like it. I'm not happy with this performance. Now, like I said, the image quality is pretty good. If you don't mind, look, I just saw some of it. If you don't mind choppiness and screen tearing and all that, you could actually play like this, 90 frames per second. You don't even have to do any of the stuff that I'm doing to get it to work with Vsync. But I like Vsync. or FreeSync, but this is not a FreeSync monitor, and a lot of people don't have a 1080p FreeSync monitor. So that's where we're at. All right, so let me show you the trick. What you do is you hit the Windows key and the L key. That locks your computer. Now, this works with Windows 7, and I've heard it works with Windows 8 in some games. I don't know about Windows 10. Now, let's turn on Vsync and see if it worked. Sometimes it doesn't work on the first try, but it looks like it's working. All right, so here we are. Now the image is beautiful. Look at that. The image is just beautiful, and you don't see screen tearing, and you don't see the variation in the image quality. It just looks really good now. All right, so why did we have to look at that? This is really good looking. Now, why did we have to go through all these steps? And by the way, I'm not used to this graphics card yet, so I'm going to change the gamma really quickly. Now, in my other 380 videos, this is too much gamma, and it looks washed out. So I'm going to go back and forth. So forgive me for making you guys be the guinea pigs for this. Look at this. You can see all the detail in the grass now and the flowers. Everything pops now. Everything is very pretty because we have a proper 60 frames per second with Vsync. Yeah, it goes into the 50s a little bit, but this is absolutely better than 28 and 30. All right, so why did we run the game as an administrator? Well, for some reason, that even when you use NVIDIA cards, that seems to help with, performance for some reason. Sometimes it helps a little, sometimes it helps a lot. The game performs very inconsistently. To be honest with you, sometimes when I use NVIDIA cards, I don't even have to run the game as an administrator. Why it performs well sometimes and not well other times, I don't know. Look at the windmills in the distance. Very crisp, very good pop. Oh, the bad guys have found me. Look at the motion right now. The motion is very good. The assets look crisp on the screen. I'm actually going to fly away and get my heat level down so we can get the redness off of the screen. Or at least fly away so I'm not getting shot at. Get rid of some of that redness. Look at how smooth this is. Look at how crisp this is. This is how the game should look. This is what you deserve from your $200 to $240 graphics card, the R9 380. You deserve vertical sync working and a 60 frames per second frame rate in an image that looks this good. This is what you deserve, okay? So anyway, running as an administrator seems to help, all right? Wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I want to change the gamma. I'm going to put the gamma, well, how about we be smart? There we go. We're going to put the gamma back down. So running as an administrator seems to help, but then the other thing is I did overclock the card, and doing those two steps helps keep this in the 50s and 60s. I say that because I've tried just doing the Windows button and the L key. I've tried doing that and then not running as an administrator and not overclocking. And when I do it that way, what happens is the game actually fluctuates between 40 and 60 frames per second, but it doesn't keep the 60 frames per second very well. All right. So now we're actually going to blow some stuff up. It went into the 40s just, wow. Went into the 40s just now. That was a little rough. Not going to lie, that was a little rough. Although we also blew up all those transformers at once. You know what? I don't like snipers, so let's take their whole tower down. You can just take their whole little perch down. I wish you could do this in every game. Did you ever play that that Batman Arkham Origins game? The snipers were ridiculous in that game. Come on. No, that's not going to work. You know what? We're just going to blow it up. We are just going to blow it up. So put some C4 on this sucker and go over here. But as you can see, the frame rate way better, image quality way better. It feels better, it looks better. This is definitely how you want to play the game compared to having to play with no VSync at all and having screen tearing. All right, compared to that, or having to play at 28, 30 frames per second. This is much more desirable. As a matter of fact, we can try to turn some graphic settings up, but you already saw when we did the explosion, things went kind of crazy, right? Like it went down to 45 frames per second. Actually, I'm not going to turn anything up because when I did, it didn't hold the frame rate as well. And this is not too far off what I have the 960 settings for, my 4GB 960. So anyway, long story short, those are the three things that you want to do for the game. All right, you want to overclock your card just a little bit. And I didn't have C4 on because I'm stupid. All right, let's turn on C4. You want to overclock the graphics card just a little bit. You want to play the game as an administrator, and then you want to do the L and Windows key trick. All right, you want to do that trick. Now, just so you know, that trick works in Assassin's Creed Black Flag with my NVIDIA cards. I've not tested it with AMD cards. And that trick also works in Grand Theft Auto 5 with my NVIDIA cards. But I've not tested it with my AMD cards. I will. I'm new to AMD, so I'm not going to be able to test everything right away. I've actually spent a crazy amount of time trying to get Just Cause 3 to play with a 380, because here's the thing, a lot of people just gave up on it and did a Steam refund, but I know the 380 is not necessarily a weak graphics card. I know the 380 can get 100 frames per second in the game with these settings. You just saw it. So it was just an issue of syncing the screen. All right, so let me go back to what I was saying a minute ago where I said it was a gimmick. I usually don't get blown up this badly by the bad guys. That's pretty interesting. Where are they at? I'm going to actually shoot them to get them out of my hair. So if you notice, I said it was a gimmick to do variable frame rate, and I said it was a gimmick to limit the frame rate. I'm not sure if they call it target frame rate. I think they call it target frame rate in the Crimson control panel for AMD cards. Anyway, it is. It's kind of a gimmick. See, what it does is it doesn't sync your image when you do those two things. It just tries to keep the graphics card in the 60 frames per second range. That's all it's really going to do. But it's still not syncing your image. So the image can still look kind of bad. It can still be choppy and wavy. Now, when you do a variable refresh rate with NVIDIA cards, it does help a little bit. You don't get as much screen tearing, but the image is wavy. As you can see now, the image we have here is solid. This is crisp. This is not a wavy image. This is not a choppy image. There's not lines in the image. All right, and that matters. All right, that matters actually quite a lot in my opinion. So, as you can see, the game is not a perfect 60 frames per second, but I knew the R9 380, come hell or high water, I knew the R9 380 can play this game at 60 frames per second. All right, I knew it could. I wasn't willing to settle for 30 FPS. I'm not going to lie to you, I had reached a point where I almost gave up on this game for the R9 380, but I will tell you this. If I had to give up on this game, and keep in mind I tried playing with an overclock before I did the Windows lock key button trick that I showed you guys where you hit the Windows key and the L key. If I would have had to give up on playing a friggin' AAA game that I like, that would have been like a damning situation for AMD in my mind. That would have made me not like AMD. I'm just going to be completely blunt with you guys. I'm going to be completely honest. You guys can blame Avalanche and you can blame Square Enix and you can say this game sucks and you can say all the things you want. But the bottom line is the R9 380 is powerful enough that it should have been playing this game at 60 frames per second, and it is playing it at mostly 60 frames per second right now. I knew the card was powerful enough to do it. Now, is it Avalanche's fault that we have to do this? Go through these 3 steps in order to play at 60? Maybe. And I would like them to fix that. I'm not trying to let them off the hook. But I knew this card should definitely be strong enough to play this game at 1080p at 60 FPS. And as you can see, it's doing that now. We're keeping 60 FPS. The image quality is pretty smooth. That's my first helicopter that I've actually seen in this playthrough. For some reason, on my AMD computer, I don't have all my save progress. It didn't save in the cloud, probably because Square Enix wants me to make a Square Enix account, and I refused to do that. So on my NVIDIA machine, I can actually play the game with all my save data. I have new save data on this machine. As you can see, look at that, 60 frames per second. Yeah, it goes into the 50s. No, I'm not happy with it not keeping 60, but this is still playable now. This is still reasonable enough. Now, hopefully patches fix this. Hopefully we don't have to do this. So let me recap. We'll be done with the video. Let me recap on what's going on here. I have to play the game. I have to run it as an administrator. I have to overclock the card. I've tried running it as an administrator and doing this lock key thing without overclocking the card. Didn't work. I tried not running it as an administrator. Oh, that is going to get me. I tried not running it as an administrator and then just using an overclock. Didn't work. I've tried not using the lock key trick. Didn't work. I had to do all three. Now, there were a couple of times. There were a couple of times where I actually got the game to play okay without using all three steps. Maybe I just used two of the steps, right? But to consistently every single time get the game to work with 60 frame per second performance, I had to do all three tricks. Though I should have mentioned I am using an i7 4790K. It's not overclocked. It's not overclocked. It is here. Let me end the game and I'll show you the system specs real quick. I'll show you in the what's it called, the Crimson control panel. Let me give this a second for the game to chill out and go away. Take you in the Crimson. All right, so go into system. So I didn't overclock it. It's at the 4 gigahertz. It's 4790K. I'm using an R9 380, as you can see there. 4 gigabytes of VRAM, 16 gigabytes of system memory. It is, I believe, Kingston HyperX Fury. And then this says Core Clock 980 here, which it is out of the box, but you guys also saw that I bumped it up to 1058 there. And when I do this, it seems to make a difference. So I'm not really sure why there's that disconnect there, why that's saying 980. And then Radeon software version 5.12. So there you go. Those are the three steps that I've had to use. Hopefully this video has helped you guys out. I know a lot of people have given up on this game. Everybody, if you have an R9 380 and you kept this game and you can't get more than 30 FPS when you use Vsync, please try these steps out and let everyone know in the comments if it worked for you, because Just Cause 3 is a crazy fun game. I enjoy playing the game. I don't care if it's repetitive. To be honest with you, I don't play the missions so much. From what I've read about the missions and what I've heard, the missions might be really frustrating. Cool beans, and I get that. But just going around and flying around and blowing things up has been fun. Just doing that has been worth the cost of the game to me. So it's a crazy fun game. I definitely enjoy playing it. And if you have wanted to play it and you felt like it wouldn't work with your graphics card, hopefully this is going to change that for you. Hopefully it's going to help you out. So thanks for watching, guys. This has been AI Gaming 1776, and have yourselves an excellent day.